Hey, everybody. Welcome to Flipping the Script again, a Lifeline Capital Group program. I'm Roy Sahachaisere.
I'm David Lamb.
Hey, David. Good to see you. And
Good to
we
see
are
you, Roy.
flipping the script. So, what is flipping the script? I wanted to address this again real quick, David, because we kind of glazed over it on our second episode. Our first episode, we kind of described it. But, flipping the script is not only do we, we are buying and selling homes. That's kind of how our business started. But we are also flipping the script in regards to helping people who are facing long-term incarceration, potentially to life, be able to navigate their narrative, right? By accessing the full value of their assets and potential money at the proper times during their whole situation, that can help navigate their narrative. It can change the track of where they're going. And David, do you want to allude to this point a little bit? Because I know you
Yeah,
know a
it's
lot.
difficult. I mean, our sole purpose is to be able to give people access to the funds necessary in order to lodge a vigorous criminal defense on serious cases. We don't expect that people are going to be calling us if they have a simple DUI, right? It just doesn't make sense to access hundreds of thousands of dollars just for a simple DUI, even though they are important. But if you are
Yeah,
facing life in prison, if you are facing 15 to life, 25 to life, a determinate term of 30 years, God forbid, death penalty, it certainly makes sense for you to figure out a means and a method to access as much money as you can to navigate through all the myriad of expenses that you're going to face. And we know, unfortunately, that in these circumstances, when you're facing such criminal charges, you're not going to qualify traditional methods in order to access the money in your home. And so we know that. And because we know that, we are offering products that allow people to access and tap that equity, and in some cases, still stay in their home. We are trying to give people the ability to use whatever method and whatever asset they have, all right, to raise the money so that they can lodge this very vigorous defense, which is necessary when you're going up against the government.
absolutely. And that's a daunting task when you're going up against the government.
Yeah.
So we've talked about arraignments, arrests. We've talked about, and so that brings us to preliminary hearings. Uh, David, being the expert here, let's talk
Yep.
about what is the purpose of preliminary hearings and who's there at preliminary hearings. What happens at a
Yeah.
preliminary hearing?
Yeah, and I'm going to remind our viewers that I was a criminal defense lawyer, right? Unfortunately, I was in a position, like many of the viewers are, that faced criminal charges myself. And unfortunately, the result of that is I lost my license, so I cannot practice law. I cannot talk to you about the facts of your case and apply them to any principles of law. So, what I'm going to talk about just in general is how these types of things happen in general. And then more specifically, I'm going to talk about the financial aspects for your consideration during these important hearings. So to your point, the preliminary hearing is most likely the first time that anyone is going to be presenting evidence. It is a time when the prosecutor brings in actual witnesses, most often through the police, but sometimes witnesses, that will lay out their case just in a minimum fashion. All they have to do is reach a low threshold to say, hey, this case should continue on. And so they're going to bring in witnesses. But it's the first time that a defendant, the defendant's family, the lawyers get to hear how people testify. And it's an important witness. The court once held that it is a fundamental hearing, all right, and its importance is so robust that you're entitled to certain things that occur during that time period. So it is a very important hearing for purposes of your overall, say, 18-month or so life cycle of the case. What they are trying to determine is there enough evidence to go forward to take this to trial? So in context of where we are in the life cycle, we've already appeared at our arraignment. We've already
Mhm.
discussed whether or not you're going to be released and how much bail is going to be imposed. We've already done some negotiations with the district attorney that have not resulted in an agreement. And now we are at the preliminary hearing stage where all of a sudden we're presenting evidence. All right. Because this is the first time that they're presenting evidence, there may be an opportunity to say, hey, now that you've heard it all, Judge, would you reconsider bail? And that's something that you're going to have to talk with your lawyer to make a strategy decision based on the facts of the case as to whether or not that's something that the court would consider. But it is an opportunity. And from a financial standpoint, then you're going to want to be ready for that.
So you're saying bail can be lowered at this point potentially.
I
Can it
can
be
say
also raised?
bail can be raised, right?
Ooh,
So these are the important things that your lawyer and you are going to discuss, okay, and try to strategize and try to figure out. There's laws out there that say when it can happen, and
yeah.
under what circumstances, but absolutely. So it's important from a financial standpoint, all right? And what we do is we take the context of the hearings and we put them into the financial arena so that you are prepared, so that if something happens, you know exactly how to handle it. So if you know that it is possible that they're going to raise bail, then you're going to want to make sure that you have a pot of money set aside in case that circumstance occurs. If
Hmm.
you know that it's possible that they're going to lower bail, then you're going to want to make sure that you have an understanding of where you can use that money best in the next circumstance. If the
Yeah.
judge has denied bail and now suddenly is going to give you the opportunity to post bail, are you ready and do you have the money and do you have the bail bondsman present and ready to post that bail immediately so that you can get out? All right. These are things that the lawyer is busy dealing with the law. All right. From a financial standpoint, that's going to be your responsibility and your family's responsibility.
And that's also where Lifeline becomes a good partner in one aspect as well. Correct. That's where
Without
we've
question.
positioned ourselves. So, w-
Yeah.
so what? So all parties have to be at these preliminary hearings, and what happens? I mean, they produce evidence. You say they're full of crap.
Yeah.
Do you
That's right.
produce evidence as well, or and
Not
when does that
typically.
whole
So
thing start?
yeah, and that's something that's a strategy. That's a strategy that the lawyer is going to work with, okay? And they're going to talk to their clients and stuff like that. It's kind of a
Hmm.
one-sided hearing typically in the sense that the prosecutor will present evidence and witnesses, all right? And the defense isn't going to want to show their hands necessarily at that stage because the standard to continue it down the road is so low. Why tell the prosecutor exactly what you're going to do, right? In
Hmm.
this case, you kind of hold it to your chest. You see what they have, you analyze what they have, and then from there you start your investigation. Not start, you probably have already done it, but you then adjust your investigation according to how these things happen, which again is another reason why Lifeline is so important to being a partner, because that investigation is not included in the amount that you've paid your lawyer. So when you
Yeah.
have investigators on your staff to go out and interview people, to monitor social media, all right, to get records, to serve subpoenas, all that stuff is secondary to the case. And if it's not happening in your case, you have to ask yourself, why? All right. Is there a reason or a justification that the investigation isn't occurring? And
Hmm.
so we've already had plenty of opportunity at this stage, all right, to start developing the theory of your case. What is the defense going to be? And so while you might not be presenting evidence at the preliminary hearing, at the very least, there shouldn't be any surprises. And the team should be ready to address those things as we start approaching trial. And so money's important. Money's important
So
during this time period.
yeah, one thing I was told when I was going through my process was no defense is not a good offense.
That's right.
So,
No, that's it.
as you had mentioned, I mean, the investigating starts as early as what, right after arraignment or right
Your
after the
arrest.
arrest?
Right after
And
your arrest. And yeah,
I know you had a phone call this morning, just this morning, in
yes.
regards to the
Yeah.
same situation. Tell us a little bit about that too, because this was a fabulous phone call.
Yeah, so this is a guy who was just arrested on sex offense charges. All right. They released him from custody and charges have not been filed. all right, he's smart enough to be in contact with us because he recognizes that charges may be filed. We know, you and I know from the statistics that the Department of Justice puts out every single year, we know that 81% of the people who are arrested ultimately are going to face charges. What they face charges on, not necessarily sure, but they're always going to face charges 81% of the time. So if you know those statistics and you know that you've been released and that they're likely going to file charges, why would you not take the golden opportunity that you have now that you've been released to start preparing? And so here's some different ways in which you prepare. The first way is certainly line yourself up with a reputable, strong bail bondsman. All right, we talked about this kind of an arraignment. You need to have that all lined up. So if the moment comes that they rearrest you and they're ready to take this case to trial, all right, you have somebody right there on your side that's going to post bail for you at a reasonable amount. And that's another area that why we are good, all right, work with people because we prefer so many people. You save money. Right?
Yeah.
So the second thing that you're going to want to do is already have the lawyer that you have interviewed, that you have sought and researched, all right, and weighed, all right. You have them already in your speed dial, and you say, contact my lawyer. All right. So that all of your rights are protected. And we're going to have subsequent podcast interviews of criminal defense lawyers that are going to lay out all of your rights and what you do in certain circumstances. All right. But protecting your rights is what they are paid to do. And you're going to want to have that. But most importantly, what you're bringing up, there is no reason to not start your investigation immediately in hopes that there is no charges that are filed. So for instance, if you have an alibi, go get that alibi, get a declaration, do the investigation, present that information over to the district attorney, make them scratch their heads and say, I don't know if I believe him, but I don't think I can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, right? And so it's going to weigh onto their psyche as to whether to charge you, all right, based on the evidence that you are presenting. The reputation of the lawyer. Think about this. If you go and the lawyer presents information and says, we're ready for trial as well as you are, maybe, right? We have all of this evidence. If you're dealing with a skilled, reputable criminal defense attorney, they're less likely in a close call to issue this case because they know the costs are going to be so great. All right. So by the time you get to the preliminary hearing, that isn't the time to be looking around saying, I didn't understand or I didn't see that one coming. You know, investigations are so important that if the strategy is there and your lawyer advises it, you know, they'll have all the information.
Right. And so what's the timing of the preliminary hearing typically? Is there kind of a time frame that you can expect it within, or
there is constitutional provisions. There's provisions and timings from the date of your arraignment in which you're entitled to do that. And that's something that you and your lawyer will be able to talk to. I will say that in general, it's the midpoint, right? So you have your arraignment and then you have some things that happen and then you have your preliminary hearing, then you have some things that happen and then you have your trial. So this is a midpoint hearing that is of crucial importance that everybody gets to take a look and take a breather and see where we are in the context of the entire case. But from a financial standpoint, let me be clear about this. This is when lawyers, what they do is they have you sign retainer agreements, and more often than not, it's not going to be from start to finish. It's going to be segmented into stages, right? The first stage is that pre-arrest or post-arrest pre-filing stage. Sometimes in that case, you're looking at $5,000 to $15,000 to get them to look at everything, prepare your mitigation, try to negotiate it, and prevent charges from being filed. And then your post-arraignment to the preliminary hearing stage, you're looking at 20, 30, 40, 50, upwards of $100,000 just into that stage alone, depending on the complexity of the case. And potentially the likelihood of getting the charges dismissed. That's the goal. If you are able to say that there's no evidence to suggest the client's guilty, at that stage, you make that argument to the court and you have the potential to get it dismissed. That's the goal. And so a lot of times the cost there. But if you are told that there's enough evidence and it's going to go beyond, then oftentimes the criminal defense lawyers are going to be seeking more money from you. And oftentimes it's substantially more than your first and second stage, because it's the second to last stage before you get to trial, right? And this is when the heat starts getting hotter, right? You got to get all your records, you got to get prepared for trial, you got to do your witnesses, you got to subpoena people, you got to fly people in, you got to do all of those things. So from a financial standpoint, this post prelim money that you're gonna have to export, oftentimes in these cases, is quite substantial.
Yeah. And this is another reason we've designed Lifeline Capital Group to become a partner in the beginning stages of this whole process. I mean, we're out here giving free resources to people that need it the most at that point. Although, like you said, last couple of series, a lot of people just stick their head in the sand. They do nothing. But if you get prepared from the beginning, from the arrest, even once everything goes away and it simmers down and it's all seemingly quiet in the neighborhood, you could eventually get another knock on the door where you now need the bail bondsman. You now need all this investigative, strategic forethought before going into this preliminary hearing. And you need the capital to be able to pay the second retainer or whatnot for the attorney.
And let me give you a different example, okay? So we have kind of talked about exactly that's right. And it's that forethought and it's that appreciation and your strategy, right? If you put your head in the sand, that's the result you're going to get, plain and simple, okay? You know, if you're not, squeaky wheel gets the, the oil. I mean, if you are doing nothing and saying nothing, all right, then it just kind of goes along. It's normal, criminal defense color by numbers. I do this, right? It's just not a very robust criminal defense, which requires vigorous advocacy, strong investigation, a team of dedicated people, right? That's what it requires. But here is a golden opportunity, Roy. This is such a golden opportunity, and people don't appreciate it much. Here is the midpoint. And while the defense often just kind of keeps things to themselves, there's going to be cross-examination, there is going to be presentations, there is going to be an opportunity to see what they have against you. And by now, there should have already been a judgment as to the skill set of your lawyer. Right? Are they responsive to your calls? Have they presented you with a defense? Have you guys discussed strategy? Do you have an investigator that's going on there? Are we preparing for the worst while taking a look at negotiations? Are all of these things happening? If not, the mid time is when you think about whether you want to stay with this attorney or whether you want to start over. And again, this is money. If you start over, then you're going to have to pay the first stage from that new law firm, because while they don't have the opportunity to do another preliminary hearing, they're going to have to start all over. They're going to have to reread everything, do the investigation. So they're going to charge you that first stage. So we say we don't want money to dictate your results. We don't want you to say, well, sure, I don't have the money, so I must stick with this guy when you're facing life in prison, when you're facing 20 years. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So if you're asking yourself at any point, why is my attorney doing this? Or why are they doing that? Then if you cannot communicate this with them, that should not be a question you're asking yourself, correct?
That's right. I mean, that's it. But at this stage, there shouldn't be why are we? You should be saying, this is why we're doing, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing. So it is a perfect time for you to analyze and stop. It's like in a football game, it's halftime, right?
Yeah.
And the coach goes back there and says to the losing team, hey, this is what we need to do. We need to make these adjustments. We need to do this, right? And then they go back out on the field and then they try to make those adjustments apply. So that's kind of your opportunity to make the adjustments. Sometimes it's, you are the greatest lawyer, let me gladly give you the money necessary for us to get to the finish line. Or it is, I have questions, I have concerns before I pay this. This is what I'd like to express, and this is something that I'd like to consider, while you are then taking a look at other alternatives and options, recognizing the financial aspects of that.
Yeah. And is the value there if you end up potentially switching attorneys? How do you know you're not going to get more of the same and you got to spend all that money again over? I mean, so many people probably say, well, gosh, I'm going to end up with the same thing. I know I did.
Oh,
So
yeah, of course. So, I mean, first, you come to lifelinecapital.com, all right, and we have articles that are written on how to analyze, okay, an attorney, right?
Yep.
We tell you the specific ways that you can go out to figure out whether or not you have the best, from your Google searches to the people that you're going to want to talk to doing
Nice.
research on the types of cases that they handle. So we have all of that information on there so that you can research whoever it is that you want. But not only
Very
that,
important.
having been in this position for 30 years, I have been working with some of the finest criminal defense lawyers, and I've worked with some of the not so fine criminal defense lawyers. What we
Yep.
have done is we have put a list of people, not so much that we recommend, but people that we can put stamps on and say, these people are experienced, and that they're all experienced and handled serious and violent felonies. They are experienced in the aspects of deportation and whether or not your immigration status will be affected. There's experience determining how this type of offense will affect your professional license. Should you be a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, a teacher, right? We have them talking about how this is going to affect your custody with your kids in dependency court. Many of the attorneys that we have on that list actually serve on the bench. They serve in some form or capacity, either as a judge pro tem or a commissioner. And so they have the information and the experience both from the bench as well as the lawyers. And so you can start by taking a look there and then do your own research and inquire of them, interview them.
And I like your analogy last episode was, you don't go to a dentist to get brain surgery.
That's right.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Same with criminal. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
All right. And so you've given a lot of, again, super important information, right? With Lifeline Capital coming into play here and what we do, where we can help, and we've designed these products so that we can help from the very beginning. If you strategically place yourself within that realm of, let's put forethought into this, let's get it in front of the curb or in front of the ball as opposed to behind it or pushing it uphill. What role do you see Lifeline Capital Group having in this whole place right after the arrest? What can we do to help?
Look, it's just, it's simple. It's access to money. All right. And we're going to work with you and we're going to try to figure out creative ways to get you access to money while disrupting your life as little as possible. All right. That is our goal. That is our mission. And we do so with an eye not to the short-term problems, but to the long-term solutions. So we take a look at how this is going to go over the next 18 months. And we ask you specific questions about your life so that we can anticipate legal issues that may arise. All right. Not how to defend them. Those are going to be your lawyers. Okay. But we have the idea of how these things may arise and the costs associated so that you have a better idea of how much you need to raise and how much you need to possess. Once we get that number and we do that analysis, then we can figure out ways in which to try to get you access to that money. And we have several ways in which to do that. And that's what we try to do for you. So we do literally find creative solutions to your unique problems in the context of your case.
We do this by doing a free asset evaluation consultation with all of our clients first. Let's gather up where you are financially. Let's potentially talk about the assets you potentially have access to. Let's talk about the family members. And we don't do this alone with the person that has been potentially convicted, correct? We do this with the whole family. We don't
With the
want
entire
just
family.
one.
That's exactly right. And we want everybody, we're transparent, we sit down, we're discreet, we do everything in a manner that's open and honest so that everybody that's on your team is well aware of what we're doing and how we're doing it so that we can collectively come to a solution. So it's important that we have everybody that you believe is important. We lay things out, and it's important for you to do this sooner rather than later. And you don't even have to, hire us right away. It's very smart for you to understand what it is that we do. So if you need us, we're here and can move fast. And so that's why we bring people in, and that's why we offer so many free resources as well, so that they come in and get comfortable with the fact that we know what we're doing, we have access to the capital, and we have helped countless people in this arena before, and we want to help you.
Exactly. And that help starts by you, the viewer, going to lifelinecapital.com. View some of our podcasts. We've been highlighted
Lifeline Capital
on group.com. Sorry. Thank you, Nick. We've been highlighted on other podcasts as well. So, do a Google search. You'll find the good and the bad, but we're all transparent. We're out there, and we're here to help as much as we can. David, is there anything that I forgot or that you want to leave our viewers with this episode?
No, other than, like we said, it's midway through. Make your decisions, be wise, be smart, and let us help you where we can.
Okay. Awesome. And, episode 4 will be coming up shortly after this, but we're going to be talking about status hearings and just playing that waiting game. What do you do while you wait? And again, we kind of addressed that or alluded to that today and in previous episodes, but there are things that we can do as we sit and wait and sit and, everything's all good. How do you make sure the family's all on board and things like that? So that's all we have for Lifeline today. We have some very invaluable information from David, and we hope again that you're never in this situation where you need us, but if you are, we're a very important spoke in that wheel, and we can save you thousands and years of your life, and we can really save the families that are involved in these things with emotional support as well, just by knowing what's happening or what to expect in the future. So from Lifeline Capital, from Flipping the Script, just want to say thank you, and we'll see you next episode.
Thank you.